Is the U.S. on the brink of another major conflict in the Middle East? The deployment of 20,000 troops and Delta Force operators raises serious questions about escalating tensions with Iran. Recent attacks on oil tankers and increased nuclear activity by Iran have triggered a rapid response from Washington. But what's really behind this sudden show of force? The deployment includes elements from the 82nd Airborne, armored divisions, and specialized cyber warfare units. Getting this many troops and equipment into theater requires massive logistical planning. The presence of Delta Force signals a potential shift towards more aggressive covert operations. Their mission: neutralize threats before they escalate into open conflict. Iran has responded by increasing its naval presence in the Persian Gulf and conducting military drills along its coastline. They're sending a clear message: they won't back down. Key strategic locations like the Strait of Hormuz and major oil fields are now heavily fortified by both sides. Any miscalculation could lead to a full-scale conflict. The conflict isn't just on land and sea. Cyber warfare is playing an increasingly critical role, with both sides launching attacks on critical infrastructure. The U.S. is seeking support from its allies in the region, but many are hesitant to get involved. The international community is deeply divided over how to handle Iran. The risk of escalation is very real. A single miscalculation, a rogue attack, or a cyber incident could trigger a chain reaction leading to a devastating war. Despite the tensions, diplomatic efforts are still underway. Back-channel negotiations and international mediators are trying to de-escalate the situation and find a peaceful resolution. U.S. forces are maintaining a high state of readiness, conducting training exercises and patrolling strategic waterways. They're prepared to respond to any aggression. Iran possesses a formidable military, including advanced missile technology, a large navy, and a network of proxy forces throughout the region. They're not to be underestimated. Public opinion in the U.S. is divided. Some support a strong military response to Iran, while others fear another costly war in the Middle East. The debate is intensifying. The future remains uncertain. The next few weeks will be critical in determining whether the U.S. and Iran can find a way to coexist peacefully, or whether they're headed for war. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and demand that your leaders pursue a path of diplomacy and restraint. The stakes are too high for another war in the Middle East. Is the Middle East on the brink? With 20,000 U.S. troops and Delta Force operators deploying, are we witnessing a desperate attempt to deter Iranian aggression, or the silent prelude to a full-scale conflict? For years, the U.S. and Iran have engaged in a shadow war, fought through proxies and cyber attacks. But now, with direct troop deployments, the game has changed. What are the stakes in this high-stakes gamble? The deployment of Delta Force signals a shift toward direct action. These elite operators, trained for hostage rescue and counterterrorism, are now positioned to strike deep inside Iranian territory if provoked. Iran's military is not to be underestimated. They possess a vast arsenal of ballistic missiles, advanced anti-ship missiles, and a network of hardened underground facilities. This deployment is a calculated risk. While military options are being considered, diplomacy remains the key. Negotiations are ongoing behind the scenes, but the window for a peaceful resolution is rapidly closing. Can dialogue prevail? The conflict isn't just on land and sea. Cyber warfare is a constant threat. Both nations possess sophisticated cyber capabilities, capable of disrupting critical infrastructure and spreading disinformation. This U.S. troop deployment has ripple effects across the region, exacerbating tensions in Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. A wider conflict could destabilize already fragile states and trigger a humanitarian crisis. The Strait of Hormuz is a critical choke point for global oil supplies. Any disruption here could send shockwaves through the world economy. It's a flashpoint waiting to ignite. For deployment, Delta Force undergoes intensive training in realistic Middle Eastern environments. These exercises prepare them for the challenges they will face on the ground. Iran is also conducting military drills, showcasing its readiness to defend its interests. These exercises are a clear message to the U.S. and its allies. Any aggression will be met with force. The threat of conflict has already sent global oil prices soaring. A full-scale war could trigger a global recession, impacting economies worldwide. If conflict erupts, Delta Force will be operating behind enemy lines, conducting reconnaissance, sabotage, and hostage rescue missions. Their success will be crucial in limiting the scope of the war. The U.S. aims to deter Iranian aggression and protect its allies in the region. But the risk of miscalculation is high, and a limited conflict could quickly escalate into a wider war. The situation in the Middle East is volatile and unpredictable. Stay informed, be prepared for potential economic disruptions, and urge your leaders to pursue peaceful solutions. The stakes are too high for war. Remember, behind the headlines and military deployments are real people whose lives will be forever changed by this conflict. Let's hope diplomacy prevails before it's too late. What happens when a region already simmering with tension suddenly sees a massive influx of American military power? Are we deterring aggression or escalating towards a full-blown conflict? Iran's growing nuclear ambitions and its support for regional proxies have long been a source of concern for the U.S. and its allies. This deployment is framed as a direct response to those threats. However, in addition, despite the key. So, what is the likely outcome of this deployment? Will it deter Iran from further aggression, or will it lead to a wider conflict? The answer remains uncertain. The U.S. must maintain a strong deterrent posture while also pursuing diplomatic channels. A combination of military strength and diplomatic engagement is the best way to achieve stability in the region. The deployment of 20,000 U.S. troops and Delta forces to the Middle East is a high-stakes gamble with potentially far-reaching consequences. Only time will tell if it pays off. What do you think? Is this deployment a necessary measure to protect U.S. interests, or a dangerous escalation that could lead to war? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more in-depth analysis of global events and military affairs. Your support helps us bring you the stories that matter. Thank you for watching. Stay informed, stay vigilant, and stay tuned for our next report on the evolving situation in the Middle East. Remember, understanding the complexities of global conflicts is the first step towards building a more peaceful world. Until next time, stay curious. With tensions escalating, is this deployment a calculated deterrent or the first step towards a larger, unavoidable conflict in the volatile Middle East? The world watches with bated breath. Recent attacks on shipping lanes and increased Iranian nuclear activity have forced the U.S. to reassess its regional posture. Deterrence is the name of the game, but the stakes are incredibly high. This isn't just about troop numbers. It's about sending a clear message. Any aggression will be met with overwhelming force. Delta Force's presence adds a critical layer of asymmetric capability. Deployment forces Iran to make a choice: de-escalate or risk a confrontation that could destabilize the entire region. The next few weeks will be critical. This deployment is also a signal to our allies in the region. It reassures them of our commitment to their security and our willingness to act decisively. Delta Force brings unique capabilities to the table: hostage rescue, direct action, and counterterrorism. They are a force multiplier in any scenario. However, this deployment also carries risks. Miscalculations or provocations could quickly escalate into a full-blown conflict with devastating consequences. Domestically, the deployment sends a message of strength and resolve to the American public, demonstrating a commitment to protecting U.S. interests abroad. Cyber domain is a critical battleground. Expect increased cyber attacks and disinformation campaigns aimed at undermining the U.S. presence in the region. The success of this deployment hinges on clear communication, strategic restraint, and a willingness to engage in diplomacy. The alternative is unthinkable. Ultimately, this is about maintaining stability in a region vital to global energy supplies. The world economy is watching closely. Intelligence gathering is paramount. Understanding Iranian intentions and capabilities is critical to preventing miscalculations and avoiding unintended escalation. The history of the Middle East is filled with unintended consequences. This deployment must be handled with the utmost care and strategic foresight. The world is at a crossroads. This deployment is a test of wills, a test of diplomacy, and a test of our collective ability to avoid catastrophe. Whether this deployment leads to de-escalation or further conflict remains to be seen. One thing is certain: the stakes have never been higher, and the world is watching. Why now? Sources indicate escalating Iranian aggression in the Strait of Hormuz, threatening vital oil tanker routes. This deployment is a direct response to that calculated risk. Delta Force isn't just about brute strength, it's surgical aggression. Their expertise lies in hostage rescue, direct action raids, and reconnaissance deep behind enemy lines. 20,000 troops represent a mix of infantry, armor, and air support. strategically positioned to deter further Iranian aggression and protect key regional allies. Iran's initial response has been one of defiance, with Supreme Leader Khamenei vowing to defend Iranian interests at any cost. But behind the rhetoric, there's likely concern. The Strait of Hormuz is a choke point for global oil supply, with nearly 20% of the world's oil passing through it daily. Any disruption would have catastrophic economic consequences. Several scenarios are possible: a limited naval clash, a proxy war through regional actors, or even a direct confrontation. The stakes are incredibly high. Behind the scenes, diplomatic efforts are underway to de-escalate tensions. But with deep-seated mistrust on both sides, success is far from guaranteed. The U.S. military is postured to respond decisively to any Iranian aggression. But a military solution would come at a tremendous cost, both in lives and resources. Iran possesses a formidable military, including advanced missile technology, a large navy, and a network of proxy forces throughout the region. They are not to be underestimated. A conflict in the Middle East would have far-reaching consequences, impacting global markets, political alliances, and the overall stability of the international order. Public opinion in the U.S. is divided, with some supporting a strong stance against Iran and others wary of another costly military intervention in the Middle East. Beyond the geopolitics and strategic calculations, it's crucial to remember the human cost of conflict. Lives are at stake, both American and Iranian. The path forward requires careful diplomacy, strategic restraint, and a willingness to find common ground. The alternative is a descent into chaos. Stay informed, engage in constructive dialogue, and demand accountability from our leaders. The future of the Middle East, and indeed the world, depends on it. History teaches us that even the most intractable conflicts can be resolved through diplomacy and mutual understanding. Let us hope that wisdom prevails in this critical moment. Why now? The recent attacks on commercial shipping in the Strait of Hormuz, attributed to Iranian proxies, have raised serious concerns about freedom of navigation in this vital waterway. These attacks, coupled with Iran's increasing enrichment of uranium, are seen by the U.S. as a direct challenge to regional stability and a potential violation of international agreements. The deployment serves multiple purposes. First, it's a show of force designed to deter further aggression by Iran and its proxies. It sends a clear message that the U.S. is committed to protecting its interests. Second, it enhances the U.S.'s ability to respond rapidly to any escalation. With troops and assets already in place, the U.S. can quickly deploy additional forces if needed. The inclusion of Delta Force units is particularly noteworthy. These highly trained special operators are equipped to conduct a wide range of missions, from counterterrorism to direct action. Their presence suggests that the U.S. is prepared to deal with asymmetric threats and unconventional warfare tactics that Iran and its proxies might employ. However, this deployment also carries risks. It could be seen by Iran as a provocative act, leading to miscalculation and escalation. The margin for error is thin. Diplomatic efforts are crucial to de-escalate the situation. The U.S. needs to engage with Iran through back channels and international partners to find a peaceful resolution. The U.S. deployment also has implications for regional allies. Countries like Saudi Arabia and Israel will likely welcome the increased U.S. presence as a sign of commitment to their security. However, they may also see it as an opportunity to push the U.S. into a more confrontational stance against Iran, which could have unintended consequences. Ultimately, the deployment of U.S. troops to the Middle East is a complex calculation, balancing deterrence, readiness, and the risk of escalation. The coming weeks will be critical. Will diplomacy prevail, or will the region be plunged into further conflict? The answer depends on the choices made by leaders in Washington and Tehran. The world watches, hoping for a peaceful resolution to this crisis, but prepared for the possibility of a wider war. The stakes could not be higher. Remember, understanding the complexities of the situation is the first step towards preventing future conflicts. Stay informed, stay vigilant. Subscribe now to our channel for more in-depth analysis and historical context on the world's most pressing security challenges. The future depends on it. Is Iran on the brink? Recent deployments suggest a significant shift. But what does this buildup of 20,000 U.S. troops and Delta Force operators really mean for regional stability and potential conflict? The Strait of Hormuz, a critical artery for global oil supply. Any disruption here sends economic shockwaves worldwide. The U.S. presence aims to deter Iranian aggression and safeguard this vital waterway. Among the deployed forces are elements of Delta Force, the U.S. Army's elite counterterrorism unit. Their mission, likely focused on neutralizing asymmetric threats and protecting U.S. assets. Iran has responded with its own show of force, conducting large-scale military drills near the Strait of Hormuz, a clear signal of their willingness to defend their interests, however they define them. The conflict isn't just on the ground. Cyber warfare is a constant threat. Both sides possess sophisticated capabilities to disrupt infrastructure and gather intelligence in the digital realm. Behind the scenes, diplomatic efforts continue. Negotiations aim to de-escalate tensions and find a path towards stability. But the window for diplomacy may be closing rapidly. Military strategists are running war games, simulating various conflict scenarios. The outcomes range from limited skirmishes to a full-scale regional war. The stakes couldn't be higher. The deployment of U.S. troops and the escalating tensions with Iran have far-reaching implications. The world watches, bracing for what comes next. The future of the Middle East hangs in the balance.